feels like it's been the longest week ever. Bleary funk. What was that? You've got to talk yourself down from all this nonsense, haven't you? And just get on with it. Get on with it! Get on with it, everyone! Most people are. So I should too. Yeah. Get on with it. I would like to introduce to you, making its YouTube debut, the Lanbitou 2033. One of the most hilarious looking fountain pens I've encountered in an often amusing journey into the world of fountain pens. Now, before we go into anything informative, I just want to say, look at it! Look at this madness! Look at this. It's got a metal grill, chain link fence kind of thing. It's got the brand name stamped out in the shaft of the pen, along with the brand logo, this hugely spacefaring triangle design, and the chain link fence motif is echoed in two bands of kind of laser etched chain links here and here. Well, it's a unique thing. I wonder who designed this and what they were up to. It reminds me of the TV show Red Dwarf, which, for anyone who's unfamiliar with it, it was a British spoof science fiction TV show from the 1998 to 1999. Characters who were adrift in a big space station. Where the hell do I get that from? It's something to do with the kind of space junk aesthetic. This show was very space conceived as a sort of enormous floating rubbish tip, with mankind living in these cobbled together combinations of futuristic technology and a big bloody mess. Space junk. Lanbitou 2033 space junk pen. And another irritatingly boring name, the 2033. I can barely remember it. I mean, look how cool this pen is. It ought to be called the Lanbitou Frontier. I don't know. A couple of minutes you could come up with something better than 2033. Anyway, let's have a little tour of the rest of this pen. The Lanbitou logo there, and that is repeated on the upper finial. And very gorgeous it looks too, with a sort of slight glaze to it. The balance is great. And the weight is obviously something that's been thought about, because, as is the case with other Chinese pens, some sort of coiled spring or something in the lower end, and they use that to add the weight, and you can feel it kind of buzzing potently, like a little quivering amulet. The section is a metal, somewhat slippery section. That's the only way I can test for metal, is tapping things against my teeth. Is that lawnmower made out of metal? Imagine having your teeth knocked out by a lawnmower. Be careful. The threads are metal on metal, which is good. There's a kind of coarse cheapness to the way they rattle up. And one thing I have found is sometimes when I'm uncapping the pen, perhaps with some sense of occasion or something, I find that I've managed to loosen the section, and I have this worrisome rattly feeling. When you go to fill the pen, you will find it pre-installed with a fantastic branded Lanbitou cartridge converter. Guzzly little thing. The cap is actually, a lot of the weight of the pen is in the cap. It does post, as you can see, and it posts securely. That's secure in my book. You have to be juddering around like there's an earthquake to pull it off. I want to lie shipwrecked and comatose, drinking fresh mango juice, goldfish souls nibbling at my toes. How well does it clip? Nice, nice. Slips right on. articulated metal folded hinge sort of deal that permits rather a lot more freedom and softness once pulled to a certain point, but then a definite secure snap back, which is very comforting. Now, I don't think this would pass the upside down test, sadly. It's been folded upwards, over, and then two pieces of metal have been pushed back, and a third piece of metal has been pushed down from the top, creating this tension here. You could actually use something like this or a coin and just create more tension in the clip. And now we have a much more tight clipping clip. On the cap band we have the aforementioned 2033 identification of the pen and Lanbitou, a really interesting brand name. One person who's done a review is the admirable Ken Crooker, who translates Lanbitou as worn pen nib. Lanbitou, worn pen nib. Before I found this, I spent a bit of time plunging around into the character Lan and came up with, well, it also translates as rotten, or pulpy, or mashy, or what it evoked to me was a slightly more sort of graphic notion of soft, mashed, pappy, that kind of synthetic, fuzz-filled mouthful you get when you bite into a sort of overdue apple. You know, that kind of soft, disappointing apple flesh, that fluffy pulp. Lan, describing the softness of the nib. I think the nib on this pen is a star of the show. The nib is the real surprise of this pen, and I'll get onto that in the writing sample. I don't know if I've done this pen justice yet. This pen cost a few dollars. It's unique, and you want to write with it. So, the writing sample for the Lanbitou 2033. And we're using Konpiki ink by the ever delightful Pilot. And I am writing on... What am I writing on? Oh, I'm writing on a Muji notebook. I am a huge fan of the nib of the Lanbitou, which has inspired me, well, it's the nib that inspired me to think, okay, well, I don't, what inspired me to think, okay? I think the meaning of the word of the character Lan is actually terribly appropriate to the way this nib feels. The character translates as mashy, pulpy, like the fuzz you get, fuzz and fizz, I suppose, you get when you bite into a sort of off an unwell apple, a sick apple, an unhealthy apple, an apple that's past its best. You know, that soft, fuzzy pulp. That's what it reminds me of. And I mean that in an entirely positive way. There's a give and a bite to it. So let's have a quick writing sample. Lovely panda seeks. I just love writing with this pen. Jinxed zebra. For quick game of whist. Yeah, so this nib is it's how to describe it's fat, it's soft, it's pulpy, but with bite. Or you could say fuzzy with fizz. You know, I don't know if that makes sense to you, but Christ, yes, it's velvety, It lays down a smooth, floating line with excellent ink flow, but it's also just got a little bit of friction to the it skipped there. That was the first time I've seen that. Possibly you may have seen earlier I'm running low on ink in here, so I should have thought of that. Yeah, but so it's a slight bite, a slight hint of resistance across the page, which for me is just enough to slow, along with this really pleasurable experience of laying down a line with this kind of softness, fatness, smoothness. It's this little resistance is enough just to help me control my handwriting. And you know, we all want leadership with submission, to quote the outstanding and enormously valuable Dylan Moran. And I think leadership with submission into the far reaches of distant galaxies is precisely what the Lanbitou 2033 was created to accomplish. It's an excellent pen, and I recommend you seek this out.